From homeless black to millionaire, the Donald Trump and Elon Musk inspired journey. Edward stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse, the city lights flickering like distant stars beneath the night sky. His reflection stared back, sharp suit, perfect hair, a smile practiced 1,000 times. CEO of one of the hottest tech companies in New York. Yet, behind the polished image, his chest tightened. The endless board meetings, the flashy parties, they all blurred into noise he couldn't escape. Success had built a cage around him, gilded and cold. But here's the twist no one expected. Edward wasn't just another rich guy with a big office. His plan was crazy. He decided to rewrite the rules of his life, not by chasing another deal, but by rediscovering what real connection meant. How? He hired Lucy, a homeless woman with eyes full of secrets and scars deeper than the city streets. No fancy talk, no polished smiles, just raw truth. She was his wild card, his experiment, his normal date for a critical night that could make or break his future. You heard that right. A billionaire CEO booking a woman from the other side of the tracks to play the part of a simple date. The whispers started fast. Was Edward losing his mind? Or was this the kind of bold move the city never saw coming? Lucy's story was mysterious, a tangle of rumors about why she ended on the streets. Resilient, tough, but carrying a quiet fire. She accepted Edward's offer, her own reasons shadowed just beneath her calm. The tension? Electric. When two worlds this different crash, fireworks are guaranteed. In the weeks leading up to the evening, Lucy peeled back the layers of Edward's perfect life. The sharp suits were its armor. They were masks hiding fears he was too scared to admit. She challenged every assumption he'd made about power, wealth, and love. But Edward wasn't just battling his own doubts. A ruthless colleague spun webs behind his back, threatening to turn Edward's bold experiment into a public scandal. Reputation on the line, heart exposed. He stood at the edge of disaster or breakthrough. As the night of the dinner loomed, whispers gathered like a storm. Secrets bubbled up with every awkward laugh, every guarded glance. Edward's palms sweated. Could this strange gamble crack open a door to something real? Or would it all slam shut, leaving him more alone than ever? The city buzzed, indifferent yet electric, as Edward and Lucy prepared to face the unknown together. What happens when the masks come off? What shatters? And what survives? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like. That really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The city buzzed, indifferent yet electric, as Edward and Lucy prepared to face the unknown together. Just before the dinner, the tension in the air shifted. One moment they were two unlikely allies, the next, everything changed. Edward had just finished tying his tie when his phone buzzed violently on the marble table. He glanced down. A message from his assistant, Emma. You need to see this. Urgent! His heart raced as he opened the link. The headline screamed across the screen. Tech CEO caught in romantic scheme with homeless woman? Scandal or stunt? Below the words were pictures of him with Lucy, easy smiles, shared moments captured by eager eyes. He hadn't seen the cameras. He hadn't even thought about the world outside his penthouse bubble. Edward? Lucy's voice pulled him from the whirlwind. She was standing there, her face a mix of confusion and concern. What's wrong? He clenched the phone, feeling the tremor in his hands. They've got pictures of us. They're trying to turn this into a joke. The lump in his throat was heavy. You're being dragged into it. Her eyes widened, and for a second, it was as if he could see her piecing together the reality they'd been trying to ignore. What does that mean? They'll say whatever they want. But you're not just a story. You're... He paused, searching for the right word. More than that. Just then, an explosion of sound erupted from the hallway. A crash, and then shouting, echoed through the building. The opulence of the penthouse felt distant suddenly, an echo of a world that was crumbling. They both rushed to the balcony, peering out towards the source of the chaos. Below, the street swarmed with press, cameras flashing like lightning, desperately trying to catch glimpses of their lives. "Edward! Edward!" the voices screeched, fists waved in the air. "Is it true? Are you using her?" His heart sank. They didn't see Lucy, they saw the story they wanted to create. "I can't let them do this to you," he said, panic bubbling in his chest. But then the unexpected hit. A figure came racing through the crowd, someone familiar. Emma. His assistant was barreling towards him with wild eyes. "Edward, you need to come with me. It's not just about you and Lucy." Her voice trembled, urgency spilling like water from a broken dam. "What are you talking about?" He felt the dread pooling in his stomach. "When I was digging into the stories about the company, I found something. Something big and dangerous. You." Before she could finish, a shadow loomed. Another figure swiftly crossing the threshold of the penthouse door. It was Richard, the unrelenting colleague Edward had been wary of. His smile was smug, a predator in sharp suits. "I think it's time we all knew the truth about Edward's little date," he said, eyes glinting. The room fell silent, tension slamming down like a heavy curtain. Edward felt every gaze stop, the weight of their stares pinning him in place. "What truth?" Lucy asked, her voice catching, eyes darting between Edward and Richard. Edward's mind raced. Was there more to this than he knew? What could Richard possibly reveal? Would it shatter everything? Richard stepped closer, just enough to drown out the throbbing noise from the chaos outside. "Oh, you're going to love this." Edward here had a deal with the media to create buzz around his new venture with Miss Lucy. All of it staged. Just another publicity stunt. Gasps echoed through the room. Edward's heart sank like lead in his chest. "That's not true!" But the expression on Lucy's face shattered him. He searched for words, but they failed him. Everything he'd built up in their short time together felt like ash, swallowed whole by a narrative he never invited into their lives. And in that moment, in the tight grip of dawning horror, the stakes were higher than ever. Would Lucy believe him? Or had he lost her too? The city continued to buzz outside. But inside, silence screamed louder than the chaos below as Edward and Lucy stepped into the upscale restaurant. The air buzzed with anticipation and the clink of wine glasses. Edward's heart raced. The bright chandeliers danced above them, casting warm light on tables draped in pristine white. But beneath the sparkle, tension coiled like a predator ready to pounce. Across the room, whispers flowed like a river, eyes darting in their direction. Edward felt them all, judging, questioning. Was this a publicity stunt? A reckless gamble? He caught Lucy's gaze, and for a flicker of a moment, it seemed like the two worlds could blend, melt together into something beautiful. But just as the first course was served, a burst of laughter erupted nearby. Edward turned, following the sound. It came from a group of his colleagues, faces glimmering with smirks. "Look who it is! The Prince of Manhattan with his unique date," one scoffed, loud enough for the whole room to hear. Laughter erupted again, thickening the air with scorn. Edward clenched his jaw, trying to focus on Lucy, but the weight of that mockery pressed hard on him. "Don't mind them," Lucy said softly, her eyes piercing through the chaos. But before he could respond, the restaurant door swung open. A loud crash echoed, drawing every eye. A man stumbled in, disheveled and wild-eyed, his clothes torn and filthy. He pointed a shaky finger, his voice cutting through the murmurs like glass shattering on concrete. "Lucy, I found you!" Lucy's face paled, a stark contrast to the warmth in the room. Edward's heart dropped. A knot twisted in his stomach as he realized this man was no stranger. This was her brother, the man she had fought to leave behind. "Jack!" Lucy breathed, her voice a whisper swallowed by the restaurant's growing unease. Jack's expression twisted with desperation. "I need your help! They're after me!" Fear danced in his eyes like a spotlight, illuminating long-buried truths. The scene shifted. Tables turned. Forks dropped. The atmosphere thickened, heavy with shock. Edward's pulse raced. Who were these people? What had Lucy kept hidden? "Get out!" someone shouted. "We don't need this craziness here!" Chaos erupted. Lucy stood frozen, caught between her past and present. Edward felt the world close in, a tightening vice around them. He stepped toward Jack, instinct kicking in. "What's going on?" he demanded, casting a protective look toward Lucy. "I can't explain here." "They're closing in," Jack shouted, frantically scanning the room. "She needs to come with me, they'll hurt her." Then, like thunder rolling in from nowhere, a loud bang erupted outside. An ominous sound. A gunshot? Gasps echoed as patrons turned to the windows. The street below transformed into turmoil. People screamed, running, seeking safety. Edward's mind raced, a hurricane of thoughts, questions, and fear. "Lucy, we need to go!" he urged, grabbing her arm. But she was still there, lost in the moment, frozen in time. Edward's adrenaline surged, but more than that, a deeper fear gnawed at him. Who was Lucy, really? What layers of her life remained shrouded in that mysterious past? He glanced back at her, searching for answers in her eyes. But all he saw was confusion, an ocean of chaos swirling beneath her calm surface. "Trust me," she finally whispered, her voice shaking. I never wanted to drag you into this. Just then, the restaurant's lights flickered, and a shadow moved close. Edward didn't know what was going to happen next, with Lucy caught between danger and the unknown. But something inside him stirred. This wasn't just a date anymore. This was survival. And in that heartbeat of hesitation, everything changed. Their worlds had collided hard, and the aftershocks were just beginning. What did Jack mean? Who was truly after them? Edward's heart thundered as he prepared to step into the darkness with her, not knowing if they would emerge whole or shatter forever. Edward and Lucy stood frozen, the restaurant humming with chaos. Jack's desperate plea echoed in Edward's mind, drowning out everything else. He could feel the weight of everyone's gaze, their curiosity morphing into unease. The mood shifted sharply, the laughter replaced by an uncomfortable tension that knotted in the air. "Lucy, we need to get out of here," Edward urged again, pulling her closer, his instincts screaming to protect her. But her eyes were locked on Jack, a swirl of emotions playing across her face. "Lucy, please, they're coming." Jack's voice was frantic, but there was something else. Urgency mixed with fear. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and a loud crash erupted outside, like thunder rumbling. Edward's heart raced. This was no longer just about dinner or reckless choices. They were in the eye of a storm. The rest of the patrons were spilling out of their chairs, fear coating their faces. "What's happening?" someone yelled, eyes wide. Edward met Lucy's gaze, and for a split second, he saw layers of her story unfold. Who was she really? What had she run from? Just as he opened his mouth to ask, someone burst through the restaurant doors. A tall figure, dressed in black. "Get down!" the stranger shouted, rushing toward Jack, eyes darting as if searching for something or someone. Edward felt a surge of panic. This was escalating too quickly. Lucy abruptly pulled free from Edward's grasp. "Jack!" she cried, racing towards her brother, confusion swirling in her expression. Another loud bang rang out from outside. Glass shattered. The room fell into silence for a heartbeat. Lucy's brother jerked his head toward the sound. "We need to move now!" Panic ignited in his voice. But it wasn't just fear. Something darker lurked behind his words. Edward stepped closer, searching for answers. What's going on? But before Jack could respond, the scene shifted like a film reel in fast forward. The figure in black lunged forward, not toward Jack, but grabbed Lucy by the arm. "Stay away from him!" "What?" Edward's voice broke, confusion sloshing inside him. Who was this person? More chaos erupted as Jack rushed forward, but all Edward could see was Lucy's stunned expression as she faced the stranger. "Do you think you can escape?" the stranger growled, voice low and dangerous. "You can't hide from us." "Hide?" Edward felt a chill shoot through him. What had Lucy been hiding? "Who are you?" Lucy demanded, pulling away. The stranger smirked, and the look sent a shiver down Edward's spine, a mix of disdain and something else, something personal. "You know who I am, Lucy. It's time to come home." Home? Edward felt his heart pound in disbelief. "Wait, what do you mean?" Lucy's voice trembled. "Enough!" the figure snapped, pushing Lucy toward the exit. "You don't get to walk away from this." Edward's instincts kicked in. He surged forward, Let her go! But before he could reach them, Jack lunged at the stranger, fists flying. Edward's heart raced as they crashed into a pile of tables. Screams erupted, and the restaurant devolved into chaos again. "Edward!" Lucy cried, her voice piercing through the noise. But as he closed in on the fight, a sudden, blinding pain shot through his side. He gasped, eyes widening. He looked down. Blood. His blood. As Edward crumpled to the ground, panic eclipsed the chaos around him. Confusion twisted in Lucy's eyes, agony in every breath. "No, Edward!" Darkness edged at the corners of his sight as he lay there. What just happened? Who was the stranger? And what was so dangerous about Lucy's past? That it could threaten their lives right now? All he could hear was Lucy's frantic voice. But as the world faded, a single question echoed louder than any fear. What truth lay buried in the chaos they had never seen coming? The city buzzed, indifferent yet electric, as Edward and Lucy prepared to face the unknown together. They sat in a cozy corner of the bustling restaurant, the air thick with anticipation. Edward's heart raced like a train on a one-way track, heading straight for a cliff. Could this gamble truly lead to something real? But just as he leaned forward, ready to dive deep into their conversation, fate had other plans. A commotion erupted near the entrance. Glass shattered. Voices raised. A woman screamed. Panic rippled through the diners as Edward turned, his pulse pounding in his ears. There she was, a familiar face twisted in rage. Marisa, his former assistant, once his trusted confidante. She now seethed with betrayal. "You think you can just replace me?" she screamed, her voice dripping with venom. "After everything I did for you," Edward felt the air drain from his lungs. Lucy's wide eyes darted between him and the chaos. "What's happening?" she whispered, concern etched across her face. But he couldn't respond. He was stuck in place, frozen in shock. Memories of late nights, shared laughs, and a growing bond filled his mind. How had it come to this? Marissa swept into the restaurant like a storm, fingers trembling with a phone, waving it like a weapon. "The world needs to know who you really are, Edward. This little experiment isn't just a joke." Gasps rippled through the room. Edward's mind raced. What was she talking about? He had thought his secret was safe. The whispers, the rumors, she couldn't have found out. Not now. Not when everything was finally starting to change. Lucy gripped the edge of the table, her hands pale. "Is it true? What's she talking about?" Her voice was a mix of fear and curiosity. Edward felt a tightening in his chest. He wanted to protect her from whatever bombshell was about to drop. But the truth roared like a freight train. Marisa narrowed sus ojos. "Oh, it's true all right. Edward has a past." Her voice dripped with malicious glee. "A wealthy tech mogul masquerading as a savior? You'll love this, Lucy. He's got a real knack for manipulation. Isn't that right, Edward?" Every word pierced through him, each syllable echoing louder than the last. The layers of his life, carefully constructed, began to unravel. He could hear the murmurs around him, the disbelief, the shock. The glances exchanged fueled his fear. illuminating his darkest secrets. He had built a facade of success while hiding his own demons. Everything slowed. The clinking of silverware faded. Edward's heart thumped so hard it felt like it could break free from his chest. "Marissa, please," he pleaded, desperation lacing his tone. But she wasn't finished. "Let me show you all just how fragile his empire is," she hissed, as she raised the phone high above her head, ready to unleash whatever she'd been holding. Lucy's eyes locked on Edward, searching for answers buried beneath the chaos. "What's going on, Edward?" she asked, her voice a whisper, caught among the rising tension. He opened his mouth to explain, but no words came. Everything he had built, everything he had hoped for, hung in the balance, teetering on a knife's edge. As the restaurant buzzed with anticipation, he realized one thing. This was no longer about him. This was about Lucy. Would she see him for who he was, or was it too late for redemption? The question lingered in the air, heavy and electric, as the elevator doors opened and all eyes turned toward an unexpected newcomer emerging from the darkness. Need! Edward and Lucy shared the elevator ride down in silence. The air felt thick, charged with unspoken words and electric anticipation. The world outside buzzed, a mass of life, unaware of the storm brewing inside Edward. He couldn't shake off the tightness in his chest, a mix of excitement and fear creeping over him like frost on glass. As they stepped into the chaotic nightlife of New York, the city pulsed with a rhythm of music, laughter, and shouts. But Edward's heart pounded louder, drowning out everything else. He glanced at Lucy. Her eyes glimmered like streetlights, holding secrets too grand for their short time together. Suddenly, as they turned onto the busy street, a loud crash shattered the night. Edward's heart leapt into his throat. A black SUV sped down the road, tires screeching, swerving wildly toward a nearby crowd. The next second, the world slowed. Edward's instincts kicked in. "Get back!" he shouted, pulling Lucy close. Just as he turned, the SUV barreled through the sidewalk, metal crashing against concrete, and the horror of onlookers erupting in screams. Everything went white. Edward felt his world tilt. The impact rocked him like a wave, knocking him to the ground. Lucy's scream mingled with the chaos, shrill and piercing. He blinked, trying to focus as a heavy silence descended. He rose unsteadily, heart racing. But nothing prepared him for what he saw. People were running, some helping the fallen, others frozen in shock. The SUV, now barely on the sidewalk, hinted at devastation. Edward's focus shifted. He spotted a woman, pinned beneath a crumpled bumper, blood pooling around her. Pain twisted inside him, but not just for the injured. He turned back, searching for Lucy. She was gone. "Lucy!" Panic rose. His voice cracked like glass, and then he saw her, standing beside the wreck, her eyes wide, but not in horror. No, in recognition. Before he could reach her, she stepped toward the SUV. The world battleground around her faded. There was something fierce in her gaze, a knowledge that didn't belong. She reached toward the driver, a man scrambling out, eyes frantic. "Stop!" she shouted, voice commanding, electrifying. "You need to listen!" Edward pushed through the throng, heart hammering. Dot dot dot. What was happening? Why did Lucy look ready to confront this nightmare instead of running away? As he pulled closer, he caught snippets of murmurs from the crowd. "Did you see her? She knows him." Panic surged. Did Lucy have a connection to the chaos? "Lucy!" he yelled again. "What are you doing?" But the once homeless woman, a stranger yet so familiar, fixed her eyes on the driver with steel determination. And then Edward's world turned upside down. "You think you can escape this?" she shouted, voice sharp enough to cut through the tumult. Then, in that seemingly ordinary moment, Lucy's past unfurled like a dark shadow. The scattered pieces clicked together in Edward's mind. The whispers, the rumors. No, it couldn't be. "Lucy," he murmured, trembling as newly dawning realization hit him like a blow. She was not just a homeless woman. She had depth, history woven into the fabric of this very city. But just as he stepped closer, forcefully pushing against the crowd, a gunshot rang out. The sound sliced through the air, a terrible, unmistakable crack that sent every heartbeat racing. He lost sight of Lucy as everything exploded into chaos. What had he stumbled into? A connection deeper than he ever imagined? Or had he unknowingly entangled himself in a web of danger, betrayal, and unmasked truths? The night morphed from a chance at connection into a fight for survival. And in that fleeting moment, Edward questioned everything he thought he knew about Lucy, about himself. As Edward's mind raced, he could feel an electric tension in the air. He glanced over at Lucy, her calm demeanor radiating strength. But deep down, his heart hammered. What was he doing? One moment could change everything. The restaurant buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses as they entered the elegant space. Chandeliers hung like delicate glow stars, casting a warm light. But Edward's nerves twisted tighter. He spotted familiar faces, investors, rival CEOs, grinning like wolves. This night wasn't just about him anymore. It felt like a stage where every eye was locked on them. They seated themselves, and for a moment, everything melted away. Lucy's eyes sparkled, full of life, yet there was something unyielding hidden beneath those layers. He found comfort in their connection, a bond stronger than he ever expected. Then it happened. A loud crash shattered the atmosphere. Glass shattered, and all heads turned. Edward's stomach dropped as he saw a masked figure storm through the entrance. The man shouted, "Where's the CEO? Edward, show yourself!" Shock hung like a thick fog. Whispers erupted. People stepped back as the masked figure's demand echoed like thunder. Edward froze. The world had flipped upside down. Lucy's hand gripped his, firm and reassuring, but he could feel her pulse racing against his palm. "Who is that?" she whispered, wide-eyed but unafraid. I don't know," Edward stammered, his heart pounding so loud he could barely think. "Stay close." The masked figure turned, scanning the room like a predator hunting prey. "I know you're here. I will expose everything!" With every word, Panic rippled through the crowd. Conversaciones huyeron y Gatsby se metió en el aire. Los clientes estaban en despertado. Edward se presentaba, adrenalina vertida. Esto es un error, Julián. Vos, porque si puedes compartir, Julián. Mientras el mascarado carga una luz sonire. We have unfinished business. Se sienten que puedes jugar juegos sin consecuencias. Lucy se liberó la mano, pasando andande. What do you want? Her voice was steady, but Edward could see the fear creeping into her eyes. A chilling laugh escaped the figure. The truth! The truth will surface, and you're both involved. The words sent a ripple of dread through Edward. What truth? The crowd began to shift, uneasy. Some pulled out their phones, recording the chaos, capturing Edward, who was now the center of a storm. Gasps of recognition filtered through the restaurant. Edward felt his mask slipping away. Who are you? Lucy called out, bravely standing her ground. The masked figure stepped into the light briefly, revealing a familiar shape. The tension tightened as recognition flickered in Edward's mind. This wasn't just a random encounter. This was personal. His heart raced as he battled the question, desperately trying to piece together the sudden puzzle. Do you even know who Lucy really is? The figure spat, eyes wild. You're about to find out. In that moment, everything shifted. Edward felt the world collapse around him. The connection he thought he'd forged with Lucy felt like sand slipping through his fingers. Doubts surged like a tide, and the weight of hidden truths crashed down on him. The room held its breath. Lucy's expression turned from fierce to confused, and Edward's heart sank. What secrets lay buried beneath her composed exterior? And as eyes widened, the reality of his choices began to unravel. What had he truly done? The stakes had never been higher. The figure's laughter echoed in the silence, promising revelations that could shatter everything. And in that instant, fear gripped Edward's chest. What would the truth bring? The figure's laughter echoed, heavy with derision, and the room held its breath. Edward felt the walls closing in, the very air thick with uncertainty. The crowd stared, eyes filled with confusion, disbelief hanging like weathered portraits in a forgotten gallery. Do you even know who Lucy really is? The figure sneered, voice slithering through the space like a serpent. You're about to find out. And then, as if the universe itself decided to shatter the moment, a deafening blast rang out. Gunfire. Pandemonium erupted. People screamed, chairs toppled, and Edward's heart dropped into his stomach. Lucy lunged forward, the masked figure's hand darting into his pocket. A flash of silver glinted in the chaos. A knife, too close, too threatening. "Lucy, watch out!" Edward shouted. But before he could reach her, she spun around. Fear ignited her eyes, but there was something deeper, something that sparkled, a glimmer of defiance. Time slowed as Edward reached out, heart racing. But then Lucy spoke, voice strong, cutting through the chaos. "You don't know who I am!" In that moment, as the crowd surged and chaos reigned, Lucy's true nature was revealed. The figure froze. Something in Lucy's voice cut through the panic, capturing not just his attention, but the attention of everyone around. "Stop!" she urged, hands raised. "You can't take me back." Edward's breath hitched. What was happening? Who was she? The masked figure faltered, and in that split second, the tension shifted like the tide. The knife wavered at his side. "You think you can defy us?" But before anyone could move, the scene exploded into wild motion. A loud roar echoed, deeper than any previous noise. A second vehicle barreled into the scene, crashing to a stop just a few feet away. A police SUV, sirens blaring, lights spinning wildly. Officers jumped out, weapons drawn, eyes scanning for the threat. The world spiraled. Voices melded into a chorus of confusion. Edward's heart thundered as everything turned upside down. He felt Lucy's hand, warm but trembling, in his. "Let me go, Edward," she insisted, and there was an urgency in her voice, a command that tugged at something deep inside him. "Are you crazy?" he retorted, bewildered. His safety instinct kicked in, urging him to protect her. But Lucy stood her ground, fierce and defiant. "I'm not someone you need to save," she shouted, eyes blazing like fire. "I can handle this." Then the masked figure laughed again. But it was different now, wild, almost maniacal. "You think the cavalry will save you?" He raised his knife, the steel gleaming under the restaurant lights. "You've got no idea what you're facing." And then, without warning, he turned the knife on himself. Gasps filled the air. Time seemed to freeze as the blade sliced through the calm. Blood sprayed like a burst of crimson, painting the ground, and chaos reigned once more. The masked figure collapsed, eyes wide with betrayal, the world fading around him. Edward felt a rush of confusion, horror mixing with adrenaline. What had just happened? As the police rushed to contain the chaos, shouting orders, Lucy stood frozen, her expression shifting from shock to realization. All they had fought for, all they had begun to unveil, hinged on that one revelation, that Lucy was not just a woman from the streets. She was someone powerful, someone he had never truly understood. As the sirens wailed and the chaos swirled, Edward's heart raced. Lucy turned to him, eyes wide, tears glistening but fierce. "Now do you see?" But before he could respond, the sound of a voice cracked through the deafening noise behind them. A woman emerged from the crowd, a fierce look in her eyes that mirrored Lucy's. "Lucy, you're not alone now." Edward's world tilted again. Who was this woman? And what had just shifted in their lives? As the police contained the chaos, one question lingered. Who were they really becoming in this tangled web of danger and intrigue? The woman stepped forward, fierce and determined. Her eyes locked onto Lucy's, and a connection sparked between them, electric and undeniable. "Lucy, you don't have to run anymore." Edward blinked, caught in the chaos. Who was she? Before he could ask, the masked figure groaned, clutching his wound. The restaurant felt like a pressure cooker, the air thick with confusion and tension. "Stay back!" Edward shouted, instinctively moving closer to Lucy. The masked man might still be a threat, but Lucy shook her head, her gaze unwavering. She knew this woman. "Look at me!" The woman's voice was strong, slicing through the noise. She stepped closer, her face reflecting relief and something darker. "It's time you learned the truth, Lucy." Edward froze, the weight of her words hanging heavily. What did she mean? The air shifted. Lucy flinched, as if a gust of cold wind had swept through. "What truth?" The masked figure gasped, suddenly gnashing his teeth in fury. "You think you can save her? She's not who you think she is." Gasps filled the room once more. Edward's mind reeled. "What are you talking about?" He felt the floor sway beneath him as doubt surged like a tide. Suddenly, the woman held up her hands. "I swear to you, Lucy, I came to help. You're connected to all of this." Lucy's expression turned from fear to disbelief. "You can't mean," the masked figure cut in, laughter bubbling through his pain. "You were always too naive. They'll betray you, as they did before." Before he could process, a loud crash erupted from the entrance. More officers rushed in, flanking the scene, guns drawn and eyes sharp. But amidst the chaos, something strange happened. The crowd erupted again, gasping and murmuring as one officer pulled off their hat, and it was Emma, Edward's assistant. "Lucy!" Emma shouted, her voice clear and commanding. "We're here to protect you." Surprise flickered in Lucy's eyes, but before she could respond, the masked figure lunged at Lucy with renewed ferocity. Desperate now, knowing that his time was limited, Edward reached down, sweeping their bodies from the line of danger. "Get away!" The stranger barely missed, stumbling into the officers, only to be tackled to the ground. The knife clattered away, forgotten. Yet, as they secured him, a strange sense of unease filled the air. Moving quickly, Edward caught Lucy's eyes, pleading for answers. "Lucy, what's going on?" But just then, the woman stepped closer, her voice urgent. "I am your mother." Silence crashed over them like a wave, drowning out everything. Edward's heart froze. Lucy's entire world shifted. Pain ignited in her chest. The woman's eyes held torrential storms of longing and anguish. Lucy staggered back. "No, you can't be." "Lucy, it's true," the woman pressed, voice trembling yet strong. "I had to leave. It was the only way to protect you." "But why?" Lucy's voice cracked, caught between disbelief and grief. "You abandoned me." "No, they made me." Edward felt lost in that moment, the labyrinth of relationships twisting tighter. Everything he thought he understood was collapsing. Lucy wasn't just a survivor from the streets. She was someone of significance, bound to secrets of their own. "Wait, Lucy!" he said, reaching for her, but she pulled back, eyes blazing with hurt and confusion. "Is this why they were after me?" she whispered, anguish etched across her face. "Did you know?" Before he could answer, chaos erupted around them again. Another gunshot rang out. This time, a piercing scream followed. The crowd surged back, people screaming, chaos erupting anew. And then in the swell of panic, the world shifted again. A black figure darted past them. Another assassin? Edward could barely comprehend what was happening. But one thing was clear. The game had truly changed. As the dust settled, and they prepared to face the storm together or apart, uncertainty gnawed at Edward's heart. What were the secrets buried deep within Lucy? What dangerous game were they really playing? The tension was palpable, and the world outside their bubble felt far too dangerous. Just when they thought they'd scratched the surface of truth, a deeper darkness loomed, and the struggle was only beginning. The chaos swirled around them, sirens wailing, officers shouting. But Lucy stood firm. The woman who claimed to be her mother stepped forward, eyes fierce yet soft. "Lucy, it's time. We can't keep running from this. You deserve to know the truth." The masked figure lay on the ground, his life slipping away. Blood pooled around him like stilled secrets. Edward felt his heart race. The fear in Lucy's eyes was unbearable. "Please, just tell me what's going on," she pleaded, the edge of desperation creeping into her voice. "I didn't leave you because I wanted to," the woman said, voice trembling. "I had to protect you from them. They're not just lost souls. There's a reason you ended up on the streets. They were hunting you, and I thought if I disappeared, you'd be safe." Lucy's expression shifted from anger to confusion, then to anguish. "You could have told me. I had to fight my whole life without knowing. I thought it was best," her mother whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. Feeling the heat of the moment, Edward took a step closer, wanting to reassure Lucy, but also terrified of the revelations unraveling before him. "Lucy, I'm here. We'll face this together," he urged gently, his heart echoing her turmoil. Suddenly, the masked man groaned, drawing their attention. "You think this is over? There are things you can't escape." His voice was weak, but filled with venom. "You think she wants you alive? They just want to drag you back into the nightmare." "Stop!" Lucy shouted, stepping boldly forward, shaking with emotion. "I'm not going anywhere with you." Before he could counter, the police rushed past them, pinning the masked man down. The tension in the air was explosive. Edward felt Lucy's warmth beside him, her fierce spirit igniting something deep within. "Lucy, let's leave," Edward urged, squeezing her hand. A flash of determination crossed her face. In that moment, everything snapped into focus. The flashing lights outside illuminated the chaos within. And even as the adrenaline surged, Edward understood one thing. They had to break free from the shadows gripping their lives. "I'm not going to hide anymore," Lucy declared, raw and unyielding. "I'm ready to take my life back." The officers secured the masked man, the sound of handcuffs clicking, resonating like a distant echo of closure. But as the air settled, so did a heavy silence. Lucy looked around, her gaze meeting the woman who had come back into her life. "Will you stay?" she asked, voice trembling. Her mother stepped forward, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I promise I'll never leave you again." Edward felt relief wash over him. Together, they had survived the storm. But uncertainty still danced in the corners of his mind. Would this be the end of their struggles, or just the beginning of a journey towards healing? In that moment, surrounded by sirens fading into the distance, the three of them stood, forged in a bond stronger than secrets or scars. A new chapter lay ahead, unwritten but glowing with possibility. But just as they turned to leave, a voice from the crowd shouted, "This isn't the end! You're not safe yet!" Edward's heart raced again. Shadows lingered, Even in the light, it was clear. Whatever they had started would lead them into darker truths. And just like that, the night seemed to pulse, the bonds of their connection strong yet fragile. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button and flood the comments with your thoughts and theories. Let's hear how this all ends. Share this video with at least 5 friends who must see this ending right now. Time is ticking. Don't wait another second.